So Larry is a professor emeritus and research professor in the Materials Science and Engineering Department at Michigan Tech University and principal of Sutter Engineering. If you will tell us how you came to know Ken. And
I'm going to give you a 15-minute presentation how I came to know Ken.
Awesome. All right, so there you go. Thank you, sir.
So I probably going to have a little different perspective than many of the speakers today. I'm kind of on the outside. I'm not from the inner circle that Ken has developed and that everyone here is very familiar with, but I certainly have had interactions with Ken, and that's what I wanted to try to share today. And this being on the outside, kind of, I started at this point. I got the email saying, would I speak at a session honoring Ken? And so I said, me? I mean, what would I speak about? I'm not one of his students. I never took a class from him. We haven't collaborated on any research. We've never co-authored a paper. I haven't served on a committee with him. What am I going to talk about? I said, yeah, I'll do it. In a heartbeat. I thought about that for like 14 milliseconds. I said, I want to be here. And the reason I want to be here is because, as everyone is going to attest to today, Ken is a very special person in our industry, and we're all fortunate to have him along. And I want to put this in the context of a journey, because I've been on the journey. I think everyone in this room has been on a journey. We call that journey concrete, and Ken's been along on that journey for all of us. So what has Ken provided along that journey? Well, the first thing is knowledge. I think everyone knows that. And here's where I started. So answering the question Mike asked, where did I meet Ken Hoover? Here's where I met Ken. I made a transition from the world of metals and minerals in 1994 to the gray world of concrete. And one of the very first books I picked up was this book, and I started reading it, trying to learn what I didn't know, and I realized I didn't know anything. And I got to the chapter on air, and that's where I met Ken. Reading this chapter. And so as time went on, I did more and more research. I read a lot more of Ken's papers. Reading Ken's papers, I met a lot of other people along the way through the literature. One with Ken Snyder, who did some work with Ken. And the issue of air became kind of a central component of what we did at Michigan Tech and a lot of the research, particularly looking at durability. And so we just, it's just something we drilled down on, and we spent a number of years doing different research projects. And if you fast forward to 2006, this book came out, and our old buddy Ken was still there. But the difference was that after 12 years, he found me. And we got a reference to this book. And I didn't even realize that we were referencing this book until I was putting this talk together. I was looking at it and said, God, he found our papers. I didn't know anybody ever read those. So it was a full circle. And again, I mean, it's literally just a few days ago. That full circle closed as I realized that where I started out learning from Ken, and after a number of years, we were able to do research that he thought was worthy, and he put it in this book. I had another intersection with Ken that had to do with air. It was the foam index test. So again, got some research money to do some work on the foam index test. And, and like I say, even if you go into the furthest reaches of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, we got a library, and I went to that library, and I found at least 20 different versions of the foam index test in the literature. And so as part of this research, we said, well, we're going to develop a standardized foam index test. The industry needs this. So we sallied forth to do that. We were going to make the one test to rule all the other foam index tests. It was going to be the primo foam index test. And we took about 3 steps down that path. We said, oh, darn, Ken's already been there. I found these papers. And every talk I give on the foam index test, I put these papers in there, and I put this slide in there, and I tell everybody the exact same thing. You want to know about the foam index test? Read those 3 papers. That's it. That's all you need to know. Everything is there. I mean, it wasn't everything. We did a few things. I think we made a few adjustments to it and improved it in some ways. Unfortunately, our sponsor didn't read the literature, so they didn't know that we were basically taking his work and just regurgitating it. And I hope we didn't plagiarize him in that process. If we did, it wasn't intentional. We did make a few changes, and eventually we did get a standard foam index test adopted. And this is very much largely based on the work of those 3 papers. I've written a number of different standards at ASTM, and generally speaking, I don't like putting references in there because that makes me think that we haven't done a good job writing the standard because we haven't explained it well. If we got to give them a reference, but these references had to be in there, and so they're in there. They're in that standard, and these again, those 3 papers. If you want to learn about it, that's all you got to do is read those 3 papers. That's the whole story right there. Amazing work. Other things that Ken has done that I've stumbled over. This one. This is a great paper. I think probably everyone in this room has read this. If you haven't, you should read it. Very good paper. Very insightful. And I didn't know this, but in having a conversation with Ken about this one day, I found out that this is where the 318 exposure classes come from. And if I got the story right, there's some serendipity involved in that. That he and Doug Hooten and John Bickley wrote this paper, and he was, if I got the story right, he was in the Philadelphia airport, and his plane, U.S. Air, decided to cancel his flight, so he had 3 hours on his hand. And so he sat down with 318 and his paper and started saying, what if we put these 2 things together? And what came out of it was Table 5 got moved into 318 with some help from Colin Lobo and other people. And the exposure classes for 318 were born from this paper. That's a pretty monumental contribution to the concrete world. And involved a little serendipity too. You had to have a kind of an incompetent airline to make it all happen. You heard a lot about him being a teacher, and again, I've never had him for a class, but I've talked to so many people that have had him for a class. And I like to think I'm pretty good at teaching. Okay, I don't want to brag, but I like to think I'm pretty good at it. But I've never had, well, maybe 1 or 2, but never had the entire body of students that have ever gone through his class just go on and on about what a life-changing experience it was. Any teacher would just fall over backwards to be able to have that kind of praise. And it's been life-changing for those students. And you're going to hear about it all day. I mean, we've already heard from Matt and others. He's just changed lives. He's put people on that journey I talked about, that concrete journey. He's lit that fire in them and got them thinking about concrete. And he does it, we all know this, I'm preaching to the choir, he does it by explaining things in ways that we can all understand. He keeps it simple, okay? And one story I've heard from so many students is about the atomic fireballs. You know, and talking about hydration and relating it to these atomic fireballs. And you know, you could get pretty complicated in talking about hydration, or you can get pretty simple, and you can get the point across. And Ken's style is to keep it simple, get the point across, drive it home, and you know, you can see it in the students. You're going to hear a lot about humor and wit, so I said, well, I can talk a little bit about that, because anyone that's had a conversation with Ken knows that. He has a very unique humor and a very sharp wit, and I like it. I like my kind of humor, you know, I get it. But when he does it in presentations, it's for a reason. Well, I can't remember who it was, talked about being intentional. Okay, it's intentional because he drives home the point. It makes you bond to what he's saying because you're paying attention. And one that I'll just share very quickly is, and I remember you saying it, but I don't remember where you said it, but you gave a presentation on how we mine fly ash. And it was precious. I mean, he talked about how, you know, we need fly ash for concrete. You know, it's a very important ingredient in concrete. So we have to go out and we have to mine it. So we go out and we dig it out of the ground. And unfortunately, it comes with this carbonaceous material that we have to get rid of somehow. So, you know, we designed this process of burning off all this carbon so we can get rid of it. And we're going to do that, and we're going to generate all this heat. And being good engineers, we're not going to waste that heat. So we'll build a power plant around it, and then we'll capture that heat. And then we'll use that to make electricity. And then eventually we'll get that fly ash. That's what we really want, is the fly ash. Time. Everyone knows this as well too. Time. Ken's always got time for people. He makes people feel special. He's busy. He's got a lot of things going on. But he always has time to chat. And it doesn't matter if it's a student or if it's another gray hair like me or somebody else, he's always got time to chat. And it doesn't need to be about concrete. He and I have had some chats about where to get a good cup of coffee in Salamanca, New York. How many people know where Salamanca, New York is? Okay, we got a couple people, okay. So that's kind of where I grew up, and we were talking by email, and we went back and forth, and all of a sudden we realized that we had some commonality through Salamanca. So someone already mentioned this too, and again, I think it's the theme that comes out of this, and I think Ken personifies this, that in our industry, what's really unique is how we interact with each other and how the senior people are always willing to help and mentor the others that are coming along. And to me, Ken just epitomizes that, and everyone benefits from it. Everyone gets a little bit more information they can share on their journey through concrete, and they learn. So I think that's another thing that we all appreciate about Ken. Last, class and character has already been talked about too. And always treats people with respect. It doesn't mean he doesn't disagree with you. And it doesn't mean he doesn't tell you you're wrong, but he does it with respect. And the old saying is character is what you do when nobody's watching, and that's certainly true, but character is what you're doing when people are watching as well. And Ken as a leader, I had one experience with Ken. We have a mutual friend who passed away, Dick Staley, and I went to Dick Staley's service. There wasn't a dry eye in the building, and Ken gave the eulogy and just did a marvelous job, and really just helped pull us all back together as a group and move forward. It was just very inspiring. So you see that kind of thing, you just realize there's a lot of character. There's just a real solid individual. So yeah, our industry is unique, and we're all on this journey to go and learn about concrete and do different things in concrete. As we go along that journey, we've been very fortunate that Ken has provided us with the technical information we need to do it. He gives amazing returns in his teaching and generating people for this industry. He has a way of communicating information that helps us all stick with it and learn it. He always has time for us, time to talk with his colleagues, time to share his information, time to share a joke, and not the least in which he has provided immense leadership in our industry. And we're all very fortunate to have him for all those reasons. And Ken, don't think we're going to let you just run off into the sunset. We certainly want to keep you around and keep you on our journey. So thank you for all you've done for us.